So, hi everybody, and Happy New Year. I've seen a lot of you around or at board meetings. But on behalf of the board, I want to welcome you to tonight's forum, which is all about the things the League of Women Voters does that you didn't know, especially our advocacy of important policies. So your league board has organized tonight's forum, and we do invite you to stay on this Zoom after our speaker for just a brief member meeting. For those of you new to the league or just becoming familiar with our work, thank you for joining and becoming a member. We are a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed participation in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influence public policy through education and advocacy. We do not support any political candidate or any political party, and we do have positions on public policy, and that informs our advocacy work, which you are going to learn so much more about in this forum. We're glad you've joined us, and it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, who is our State League co-president, Denise Hartsough, who I get to see at a monthly league president's meeting, and she's even done just personal hand-holding for me when I started this job, which I certainly appreciate. Denise has been a league member for 30 years. She served her local league in Kalamazoo. She has served them since 2011 as secretary, co-president, president, and vice president for program, which is her current role. At the State League, Denise was treasurer for 6 years before being elected in 2023 as co-president. She enjoys serving as a membership and leadership development coach and was a member of the team monitoring the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission for 4 years. Wow. In the 1980s, Denise worked as a film studies professor at Bowling Green. And after a career change, she held leadership positions for 17 years at United Ways in Kalamazoo and areas and Allegan County. Until recently, Denise consulted with nonprofits for strategic planning, grant writing, and meeting facilitation. And now she's devoting herself full-time to volunteering. Bless you. The league runs in her family. Denise's mother, Delight Hartsough, served as president of the League of Women Voters of Indiana in the 1990s. And Denise's daughter, Laura Wheeler, was a member of the Holland Area League until she moved in 2023 and joined the Kalamazoo League. So mother-daughter are in that league, which is wonderful. So Denise, welcome, and thank you for being willing to tell us about all things league that isn't voter services.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. That's very kind. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be all things that are voter services. I just will focus on advocacy, and I'm really focusing on local league advocacy, hoping to see if you have some questions or discussion or thoughts about that. I'm wrestling a little bit with my computer to make sure I can share my screen okay. So I'm going to... First, I'm going to see if I can share my screen, and then I will start the slideshow. See if that works. Okay, so, all right. Is it sharing? Can you?
Yes, it is.
How do you tell me if you can? Yeah. All right, great. Now I'm going to start the slideshow from beginning. Okay, are you still seeing the right thing? See the title page? Okay, cool. All right. Excellent. Phew. All right. Yeah. Technology. It's always an interesting thing to deal with. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to talk about advocacy and what kind of thoughts you have. This isn't super long, so don't worry. Okay. But my computer's a little slow tonight. Okay. So when we do advocacy in the league, of course, we're doing it in a nonpartisan manner because the nonpartisan policy is one of our key policies. And I'm sure you're all familiar with that we never support a candidate or a political party. But also at the same time, we want to remind ourselves, as our new LWV US President Diana Wynn did recently, that when we advocate on issues, that is not partisan. So issues in and of themselves are not partisan. So as this, I took this quote out of a blog that she sent out, I think just like back in December. where she says advocating for gender and racial equity is not partisan. Calling out attacks on democracy is not partisan. You know, we have our mission to defend democracy. We cannot live up to our mission if we are unwilling to speak up and speak out. So just to reassure ourselves that it's not partisan to talk about issues. Okay, so when we do our advocacy, as I said, we're doing it on issues, not about people. It's very important we root our advocacy about issues on league positions. So our leagues have positions on issues, and those positions are adopted by league members, and it's only after careful study. So we study the issue, and then we come to consensus around a position, and then we use those positions to as the basis for advocacy. If we don't have a position on an issue, then we aren't going to advocate on it. Okay, so we do our advocacy at different levels. So we have 3 levels of league, and we have advocacy at each level. So at the national level, the League of Women Voters of the US, we have positions, and those positions are collected into a pretty big document called Impact on Issues. And you can see it online at the LWVUS website in league management, or you can order actually a paper copy of it if you want for some minimal amount. I think it's less than $10. At the national level, we have an advocacy committee, and there are staff and volunteer lobbyists. I think most of the volunteer lobbyists are people who live in the DC area. And then you may know that the LWVUS sends out action alerts on federal issues. So then at the state level, it's somewhat similar. The League of Women Voters of Michigan has positions, and those are on the State League website. We have an advocacy committee that's led by our Vice President for Advocacy, Judy Karanjeff. And then we sort of have volunteer lobbyists. Basically, those are the members of the State League Advocacy Committee. And we also send out action alerts about state level issues. So that's mainly proposed legislation at the state level. And then at the local league level, which would be your own league, you could have positions on local issues, and you could have a local league advocacy committee, and you could take action at the local level on local issues if you so chose to. So in terms of advocacy, what can individual league members do? Well, certainly individuals are urged to respond to the action alerts that come from the National League or the State League. And I should close this little message that I forgot that you can see that. Sorry about that. It's usually a possibility to personalize those action alert messages. If you've ever responded to one, you know, you get like the canned text, but it's usually open to editing. And so that if you have a personal relationship somehow to the issue at hand, if it affects you in a personal way, or you have some kind of strong feelings about it, you can add something to the standard text that's in the action alert. And that's actually a great thing to do to get a little bit more attention to it. What an individual league member can also do is request that action be taken on something that is at the state level. So a proposed bill at the state level, let's say. So there is what's called a support oppose form. It's on the State League website, and a person would fill out that form with information about the bill and whatever requests they're making. And then that goes to the State League Advocacy Committee for its consideration, and then it makes a recommendation. And if it's recommending that something be done, it would send it on to the State League board. Okay, what can local leagues do in terms of advocacy? Well, certainly we encourage local leagues to amplify the action alerts that come down from the National League and the State League. You can put them in your social media or just send out an email blast to your members or put them in your voter, whatever ways of just reminding people that they have this opportunity to take action in the name of the league. And that's great because the more people who do, the more impact it will have. A local league can also, as a league, request support for or opposition to state legislation. So using that same form that I just talked about, the support oppose form, a local league can put in a request to the league. And then a local league can also request action at the federal level. This would probably be pretty rare, but there is a form to request that LWVUS consider taking some kind of action that has to do with federal legislation or federal measures, of some sort, whatever it might be, whether it's asking the president to do something or if it's in Congress. And then a local league can also engage in local advocacy and education on local issues. So now we'll talk a little more about that. So these are sort of the steps that a local league would go through if it wants to be doing local advocacy. So forming an advocacy committee would be a good first step. It's important that the chair of that committee be on your board because you want to have clear communication between the advocacy committee and your board. And then the members of your advocacy committee are probably going to be people who already are interested in particular local issues and they're monitoring them, or people who are eager to start monitoring some key local issue. So you want those people to be engaged. And then you would need a process for actions. And here again, just like at the state level, there's a template for a support oppose form for local league. So it's very similar to the state one. That's on the website, the State League website. It's a form that you would then make available to your members so that if they are wanting to suggest to your local league board that a particular action be taken with regard to advocacy, they can fill out the form. The form goes to your advocacy committee. The committee makes a recommendation to the board, and then the board, if the committee is recommending that action be taken, or if the board wants to overrule the committee, the board makes the decision about what to do or not to do. And then, so the other thing that would need to be happening is just kind of people in your league, maybe observer corps members, maybe the advocacy committee members, they're just kind of always got their antenna up looking for, is there a need for the league to step in and advocate on a particular issue for or against something that's happening at the local level. And so then once all these pieces are in place, your league could use that process to take action if the board approves it. Okay, and when the board is considering a request for action in terms of advocacy, it's going to need to have some criteria for making a decision. So most importantly is the existence of a league position that can serve as the basis for whatever stance. So there has to be a league position. It can be at the local level, at the state level, or at the national level, as long as it's relevant to whatever issue you're looking at, and then you have to operate in consistently with that position. A league may decline to take action on something if the league disagrees with the position, but a league can't speak against a position that we already have in the league at any level. So assuming that there's a league position, the board would then want to think about, well, is this a priority to our league? Is this something that we want to devote time and energy to, or maybe even a little bit of money? And then think about the impact. Will taking this stand maybe perhaps raise the profile of our league in the community? And that will be, good for us in lots of ways. Will taking this stand put us in alliance with some groups that we've been wanting to form a relationship with, or that we'd like to become closer with, those types of thoughts about the impact. And then engagement of league members. Is this an issue that your league members care about? Is it going to galvanize some action on the part of a good percentage of your league membership? Because if people don't care about it, it might not be worth going through the process. And then there may be other criteria that your board would want to establish or just think about in the moment, depending on what the situation is. And then just a note about millages. Millages, one has to be very careful about. These are things that we all have to pay in our taxes. So you have to think about the community, whatever the requesting entity's budget is, and all the pros and cons of the request. So that's just a little option there. So what could a local league possibly do in terms of taking action? Like if it takes a stand on a particular issue, there could be a league leader who goes to a public meeting and makes a public comment or provides testimony. There could be letters to local officials or to the editor if you have a local newspaper. You can issue a media release and hope for some media coverage, or you can pay to promote whatever stance it is you're taking. It may be that you are adding your league to a formal list of supporters or opponents of whatever the issue is. And you might want to issue an action alert to your members or perhaps the public. And this could be inviting people to attend a county commission meeting at which some certain measure is going to be voted on. Or there could possibly be a demonstration that's about whatever the issue is that your league might want to officially endorse and attend. So, and this is not an exclusive list. This is just to give you some ideas of possible actions that a local league could take. Okay, and then there's some resources about local advocacy. This first batch is from the State League website where it says advocacy tools. It's a section of the website. There's a policy on local league advocacy committees, what they do or don't do. And then there's that template I talked about, the local league support oppose form. And then there's also a flow chart that describes how a local league could study an issue, adopt a position locally, and then propose that that position be adopted also at the state level by the delegates to the state convention. So that's just because there are a couple leagues in the state that have gone through that process. And then just to show you that you have some other leagues who have some form or another of a local league advocacy committee. There's 7 of them here that you could consult with, or I think, yeah, talk to. Some of these may be of longer standing than others, and some may be more or less active, but it just shows that it's out there as a phenomenon. So that is what I had to present. Let's see if I can get this to go away. And then I need to get back to the meeting so I can stop sharing. Just a second. I'm messing around with my computer. Oh, here we go. Found it. So my computer is slow. There we go. Great. Okay. So that's what I had to present, and I can share the presentation by email afterwards if people are interested in the links or whatever they're embedded in the presentation. So I'd be glad to hear your ideas or answer questions.
Would you would it be okay if we all unmuted now and we can just talk?
Yes.
Well, I have a question.
Now, Robin, then Penny.
Okay, sorry, Penny.
No.
You know, you gave really a good structure for advocacy. I know our league, we obviously don't have a committee. We've talked about it, but only briefly. You've given a good structure about advocacy. I'm wondering if you can put that into an example to put it more in real life for us.
Well, I could talk about my own league. We've only recently, like in the last year and a half, maybe, we've started a formal advocacy committee. And so it's like, because I'm the vice president for program, I get to be the chair of it. And we did actually formally change my title to vice president for program and advocacy, so that we're like putting it into the title of the position to kind of put it more firmly into our structure. And we amended our bylaws to reflect that. There are two people on the committee who are really into climate issues. And then one of those people also follows firearm safety issues. And then another person on the committee is very engaged in advocacy around senior citizens. So the one support opposed form that we received last year actually had to do with the senior millage in our county. And so our little committee thought about it, talked about it. We, drew up like a rationale, and then we made a proposal to our board to endorse the senior millage. It was a renewal of a senior millage. So it wasn't going to raise taxes any more than where they already were. And we saw the different range of services that were supported by the millage and how many people had been helped, et cetera, et cetera. And so we put that in front of our board, and the board approved it. And so then we had our league's name added to the list of supporters. And I think that, I don't remember exactly if I ever saw it, but I think there was some kind of listing of it in some, maybe online or something, because we don't even have a local newspaper anymore. But, certainly it was, we were listed among the supporting groups, the endorsers of the millage. And it did pass, but probably not due to us, but yeah. So that's about the most, the only other thing that we've done is we've had every now and then little features in our voter about the issue. So like there was something about what the city of Kalamazoo has been doing for environmental sustainability in the long term. And then I'm trying to get the firearm safety person to put in an update pretty soon in the voter about her issue area. So yeah, I think somebody else.
Penny and then Susan Hannah.
I'm the observer coordinator for our observer corps, and we do put a summary out monthly when I get them on time of what people have reported. So I'm assuming that advocacy committee is going to have to move pretty quickly, because some of these issues are timely. And how does that work? I mean, because I'll get a report from somebody, and then right now all I'm doing is, if it looks like it's something that the league might want to do something about, I will shoot it to the president, to Lisa. Or if it's something that, like, if it's something environmental, the environmental committee might just want to know about, I'll shoot it to them. But again, what would be the role of the advocacy committee in this process?
Well, I think it depends on what you want to do. Maybe you don't want another layer, but if you did want to alleviate a little bit of the burden on the leadership of your board, you could have the advocacy committee kind of be the screening entity. So like that, if maybe it's reading those observer corps reports and it's looking for opportunities or threats that need to be countered. So that might be the role that it could play. I mean, it is awfully hard. I mean, I know that most league boards are comfortable with email votes, but if it's a very weighty issue, you probably want to have at least a discussion about, before you just hop on to take kind of a stand. So it might be hard. Leagues are pretty, we're more a battleship than a little attack boat. We're not real fleet. So not speedy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Susan Hannah.
I was just going to give another example. Kalamazoo the chapter has a long and illustrious history in advocacy. Denise, this is even before your time. I joined the Kalamazoo League the summer of 1970. I was immediately put on a committee because the local league had joined the Friend of the Court brief for desegregating the schools in Kalamazoo. And I was put on a committee to write part of our whatever we were assigned. It had to do with fire codes and schools and stuff like that. But that was a long time ago. And that was like important. And it was a really big deal. And the league was stood up and got counted for that. So Kalamazoo's been at the advocacy business a long time.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah.
Was there another hand? I'll throw in, and Robin maybe can answer this as well as Denise. My understanding is that the Leelanau League was important in getting the childcare millage passed in Leelanau County. Penny's nodding too. Can anyone tell me more about that?
They wrote a position, didn't they, Robin, regarding this? So they even have a local position regarding that. And it was a couple, and I was gonna ask Denise this as well, but I didn't want to be hogging all the questions. My understanding is to create your own position, it takes like a year or two study. And to come up with that, I mean, it's not something you can just do overnight. It's really very, very detailed and requires lots of checklists to make sure you've checked everything you need off before you come up with that position. But they came up with a position and then they advocated for that millage and the millage passed.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I would just a comment on creating local positions. I don't know if would it have to happen exactly this way, but in my league, the last local position that we did, it was about school safety, and it was a couple of years ago. And so we have our annual meeting in like April or May every year. And so at one annual meeting, we authorized doing a study on school safety. So then a little committee met, and studied and got research and drew up like their consensus and a draft position on school safety. And then at the subsequent annual meeting, the next year is when that position was adopted. So right, it's not a fast thing. And I'm not sure that you would need that initial authorization. Perhaps the board could just authorize something happening, so you wouldn't necessarily have to take a whole year, but it is something that has to go to your membership at your annual meeting, because it's an important thing to adopt a position.
And actually the state and the US positions, they don't leave much out. I mean, you'd be very hard pressed to not be able to find something that you can hang your hat on.
Right.
I mean, one I know that got done a couple years ago was the newly revived league in Jackson, Michigan. They became very interested in mortgage foreclosures. This was back when there were just like a lot of them going on. And they looked and scoured through all the positions, at the state and the national level, and they couldn't find anything that really seemed to address foreclosures. And so they did that process to come up with a local position on foreclosures so that they could do advocacy on it. So it can be done. Yeah.
I have a question. This is Mary Clinton. And, I run our voter registration events. And what I'm curious about is we have found, particularly in our community where Petoskey tends to be more liberal and the Out County tends to be quite conservative, that people always question that we're really nonpartisan. And we try to explain that to them. And I am curious if you have any more ammunition, so to speak, especially when it comes to advocacy on a position, that if the league is advocating for a position that's traditionally associated with one party or the other, how do you talk to people to try to assure them that this is not a political partisan issue?
Okay, well, so first of all, we are a nonpartisan political organization. So we are political. Most people, when they hear political, they think, oh, you're for a particular party or you're for a candidate or something. It's like, well, so that's really hard in most people's minds to pull apart nonpartisanship and being political. Like they can't see how those can coexist. But actually on our state leaders webinar or whatever it was, Zoom meeting this afternoon, that got addressed. And so I'll just see if I can find some of the highlights from what Diana Nguyen was saying. She was talking about how we need to make sure if someone makes that allegation, the league is partisan, that we need to counter that and point out that issues aren't partisan. that if an elected official or a candidate says like, oh, well, I share your position on XYZ, we don't endorse that candidate. We don't say we're for that elected official. So that, you know, like, so these things are separate. Our stances on issues are separate from our nonpartisanship, which has to do with not endorsing candidates or parties. And she also pointed us to a really nice blog, I think it was actually from 2021, that's on the League Management website. It's called Remaining Nonpartisan in Hyperpartisan Political Times. And so that can be a really helpful resource if you want to look at that. But I think it's just helping people understand that, you know, like just repeating the nonpartisan policy. We never take a stand, you know, we never support or oppose a candidate or a political party. We are political in that we take stands on issues after careful study and consensus. And it's our members who create the position. Our members vote, like at whatever level we're talking about, local, state, or you know, the National League. The members are the ones who vote to say we're going to have this stand or not. So, you know, that's, and I know it's really hard because as politics have changed over the last couple decades, it's become more and more that certain issues are so totally identified with one side or the other. Like it used to be that, like, let's say on the issue of abortion, you'd have some very strong anti-abortion candidates who were Democrats and some who were Republicans. Like it wasn't strictly along party lines. And so that's changed over time. And so that just makes it all the harder to help people understand that our stances do not make us partisan. So that's about the best I can do, but thank you for bringing that up.
I do remember Sue Vandeventer, who I think is in today's forum, said to me once when I was asking about this, about how to deal with people. And she says, sometimes we just need to remind people that the League has always had kind of the same goals about voting and voting rights. It's that the country that's changed, the League has not. And I thought that was great, because I think that for me, that is a great way to tell people we're still constant on our mission. You know, it's things that are moving around us. So, but it helped me to put that in perspective for when we're doing these events and people have questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other point, I never even had thought of this, but that Diana Wynn brought up today, she said, we don't ask our members what political party they belong to. Like, I never even thought about that we would, you know what I mean? Like, it never crossed my mind that that would be anything we would ever do. But so she just brought that up and was like, oh yeah. So, yeah.
Other questions and thoughts? It's a great group assembled here.
Just when I was
Libby,
giving a
thanks.
presentation, one of the presentations that came down from state a couple of years ago, and I don't remember what it was on, with ranked choice voting or maybe the national I think it was the national popular vote contract, at a Rotary meeting. And one of the Rotary members who is very, very conservative, was convinced that this all just came straight from the Democratic Party. And he was pretty rude about it, but it was kind of, I mean, there was no way to really convince him. All I could say is, you know, I have no idea what the Democratic Party stance on this is. This has nothing to do with the Democratic Party, but he's still convinced that we're just a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. So it is a constant challenge up here.
You know, I think after this most recent presidential election, that's going to be a harder stance for somebody to take or point to make, because I think in the past, many Republicans felt like, oh, well, if we have, you know, like the president is elected by the popular vote, no Republican is ever going to win. Well, look at what happened. They're not going to have, you know, there's going to be a counter example to that assumption. So I don't know.
Yeah,
You know.
hopefully.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to want to add a comment to what Mary said, because this issue is just so in the forefront of everybody's mind now that there's camps that are firmly embedded. In the 70s, and I learned this from one of our mentors when we were MAL, the League in Michigan was considered a Republican women's group, because Helen Milliken, who was the wife of one of, I think he was a senator or governor. He was a governor. She was the president of the local league in Traverse City. So, you know, it goes back and forth. It is the parties that change. It's not the League. So, but you know, certain people are not going to be amenable to convincing regardless.
Right. And I mean, you know, even in terms of all of our voter service work, I mean, we have a underlying conviction in the league that we want every eligible voter to be informed and to exercise their right to vote. Well, so that runs counter to some people's preferences or beliefs in what, you know, how government should be. So that's our DNA. And so if somebody is against that, then, you know, that's too bad. They don't share our vision. You know, they don't share our values. I'm just curious if there are any local issues that are kind of stirring league members in your area, or if it's just kind of in the abstract that advocacy might be something that you're thinking about.
One of the big issues in our area, and it comes up often in some of our municipalities and their meetings, is affordable housing. It's very difficult up here for people who aren't very wealthy or even middle class anymore. The housing market is just out of control, and there isn't affordable apartments, affordable starter houses. And then again, eventually it's going to kind of cascade to where we just can't have a really consistent working force up here.
Yes. I mean, I think affordable housing is a problem everywhere and very acute, like in your area where there's a lot of retirement homes, second homes, you know, tourism, the Airbnbs, you know, all those things. Just, it seems like it just heightens the situation where you are. So yeah, I'm just curious, do you have any local entities that are trying to do through zoning that are trying to address that?
Debbie can talk to that.
Well, and
There are actually several
Susan's
projects going on right now to build affordable housing. We've got a couple of really big apartment complex issues going up. One of which will be completely for affordable and one will be partially, but there's a lot of new units coming in, which is really good. There's a lot of work been being done over the last few years. And we're making progress, but you know, it doesn't happen overnight. You can't build a apartment complex in 5 minutes. So
Go ahead, Susan. Anna, too.
Susan knows a lot.
There's a local organization called the Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership. Anybody who's interested, please just send me an email and we'll get you on our newsletter list. But we have been advocating, and Debbie's husband, Scott, was a charter member of that organization, on all of the obstacles that stand in the way of affordable housing. And we have very forward-looking people here in zoning at the county level. Down at the city level, there's sometimes a little shakiness there because people are very afraid of it's just NIMBYism all in capital letters about, you know, how dare you, the idea that you're going to build a multi-unit affordable housing project next to my $5 million house. At the same time, these people, like in Harbor Springs, have a volunteer fire department, right? And no fireman can live in Harbor Springs. So I don't know why they do that, because their house is going to burn down, but that's okay. Anyway, yes, I care about this issue. There are folks in town working on it, and it's a slog, but we are, as Debbie points out, we're making real progress. A number of the smaller communities, Pellston, Alanson, Mackinac City, are come on down. They're ready to help with development. They've got space and they have interest and they have good schools. And yes, there are people working on this issue up here.
Oh.
There's also a lot of more and more people getting elected to a lot of the county and township roles who are very kind of negative on government in general and very negative on spending any money. The two commissioners who were just appointed to the Emmett County Planning Commission are both very, very much that way. So I'm a little worried about any for future plans in Emmett County over the next 4 years, or at least the next year. So we're constantly kind of having to deal with a variety of different attitudes towards what government should be and is and could be.
Health department too.
Yes.
Yeah, the health department up here has had a lot of explosive situations where the health officer ended up having to resign and almost was physically assaulted. It was a big fat mess. So healthcare is, the public health is a big issue, and who knows where that's going to land in the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the observer for that one, which is always very interesting, but yeah. We're seeking a new health officer because we shared one with Benzie Leelanau and he has now gone directly to them. And so we're currently in the search for a new health officer, and it'll just be interesting to see how the board treats the new officer.
Right. Yeah.
Elizabeth, who I don't know. Hi.
Hi, I'm a new member.
Wonderful.
I have a question about the role of the observer and what exactly one does in that role and how you learn to do it.
I think, Debbie, you're the coordinator?
No, Penny.
Penny,
Penny.
Penny, would you go ahead, Penny?
Well, I can chat with you, Elizabeth, but basically what an observer does is they show up to monthly meetings and they record any discrepancies or any just kind of questionable things that might be going on as far as procedure is concerned. We're looking at sunshine rules. Where are they conducting the meetings the way they're supposed to be meeting? Are they discussing it in the public? Does it look like maybe they've made some decisions before they came into the meeting without it being without their opportunity for public comment? They also, what we do is we have what I asked the observers to do. There's a form you fill out that's on our website, and we ask, is there any issue that came up that our league might be interested in? And a lot of times we'll see something, like I said, with the environmental or committee, there'll be some things about the rivers or the lakes or whatever that they might find interesting, or health department stuff would be something that we would be interested in, or if it's something that, yeah. So basically it's a way for us to kind of keep an eye on what's going on at the local level, because we no longer have our local newspapers who used to send cub reporters out to these meetings and have them reported in the newspaper. So unless somebody's showing up to see what's going on, we really don't know until maybe there's a huge problem has aroused and we haven't been there at the beginning. The only thing the observer cannot do is make comments about what the proceedings are. All you can do is ask a clarifying question. I didn't hear that. Would you explain that? But you absolutely cannot provide an opinion on anything that's going on in that meeting. We send a letter of introduction to the board that you will be observing, so they will know that you're there. We're not doing this under the wire or anything. It's quite out in the open. You have a little badge you wear. And I guess observers here, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you enjoy it? Is it helpful?
It's definitely edifying.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Very
eye-opening at local levels.
How many observers do we have now, Penny?
19.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
But
I
we're
have
always
maybe-
looking for more. We're always looking for more. If you're looking just at townships, I think, I can't remember which is which, but one of our Charlevoix County and Emmett County, and I'm not even sure about Sheboygan, but they each have around 18 or 19 townships. And those, and so we're only seeing, so we look at townships, we look at county commissions, we look at libraries, schools, health department. Help me out, anybody else here that I'm missing? Cities, city councils.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's tons and tons of availability. And if you're living in a certain township and you would like to do that one, just give me a call. Or I see your name here, Elizabeth. I'll contact you and we can have a discussion. It is a lot of fun. It really is. When I say fun, but I mean, you may be the only person at this meeting, but sometimes something will come up and you'll go, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that heard this. And it's really important. So that's the good part about it. Anyway.
And
if
they
you're
get to know
from-
you after a while. They kind of get used to you showing up every month. And
Yeah,
I've explained to a number of the people exactly why I'm there all the time and why I never talk, but they say, well, thank you. I'm really glad you're doing this. They're very kind of appreciative that we're taking the interest.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Elizabeth, if you're in Bear Creek Township, I'd be happy to share meeting.
You know what? I hate to say it. I'm not exactly sure. I think I am. I'm right near Gordon's Food Service.
Yeah, you might be.
I think I am.
Bear Creek Township wraps way around. It's a strange.
Yeah, it depends which side of
If
the,
you're in the condos behind, you live in the city, don't you?
right.
Oh, you know what? I do live in the city.
Oh,
Yes.
I do live in, sorry about that. I do live
oh,
in.
well.
Ethel's looking for a
I was
partner.
gonna
in
say-
Bear Creek Township.
Yeah, I want to share.
But it's not a requirement, is it, that you have to
No.
live in the
No.
area? to
No.
observe?
No, you don't
but
have
it
to.
just might be more interest, of personal
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in awe of your observer corps. That's huge. And I wish my communities, I wish my league members in my community would show up like that. So I think we're having a hard time getting recruits.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of interest. The only, one of the drawbacks for us is we're a lot of geography. We're 3 counties. And so, some of the the leagues in the lower Michigan, they're like a city or they're 1 county. And so for us, we're spread so thin.
Yeah.
I'm just excited that we have all 3 county commissioners are being observed, all the commissions, those 3. But otherwise, we've got lots of room to grow.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting more members,
Yeah,
so
it's an
Yeah.
awesome group, Denise. It's a great tribe, I think.
that's great.
Any
Well,
other
the-
comments or questions before we let Denise go to her next meeting and we have a short member meeting ourselves?
Yes.
I'm
Thank
looking,
you.
we're all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
good
Keep
to
up your
see
good
you.
work. It was great to talk with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So there isn't a form,